Shunyavadi Pasatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Sí, Nitai Gaur aquí.
Hari Bol, qué lindo que canta Militesha, so nice, she's so beautiful, wakes us all up, getting ready for the reading. Good afternoon, good morning for some of you. Jiva Pavana, did I say your name correctly?
It's correct, yes, Jiva Pavana.
Oh, finally, I got it right. Marita, Araceli, Rama Devidasi, Param, Danesha, Hari Bol, Gabi, Hari Bol, and Araceli, very nice. Today we have a special guest coming to join us for reading. Justin Davis will be the author of the book directly, Viananda Das Goswami, Hari Bol. He will come in a little bit. Yes, Rama, I can hear you.
No, I was just saying yay, Haribol.
I thought you had your hands up. But he will come in a little later. He's in a Shapa walk right now. So we need to read, but we need to also remember where we're at. Barista read so well that I was very impressed and he was very satisfied with his reading. He said it was excellent. So Barista, I think you are it for some time, if it's okay with you to read. But let's remind us all, because I know everybody came last time. So what's happening right now? Who remembers? Where are we in the story? Anybody? It's hard to remember, huh?
We're trying to figure out if he's in a dream or if he's been transported to Gurula.
Yeah, so
or Vijay's body.
He just woke up as Jaya, no?
Or Jaya, yeah. Is that it? Jaya.
Yeah, he woke up as Jaya. We don't know where he's in. So Justin, for those who weren't here, Justin read, he got expelled from school for some things that happened. And then it was his birthday. His mother gave him a book. The book was the Avatar, the first Avatar. And in the picture was a picture of Krishna. He didn't know it was Krishna, but the picture, look at him direct on the face, and he felt like he communicated with him, and he read some extract from the book to his brother, and then after he read a couple of times, he fell asleep, and then he woke up in this other place. We don't know. And this place, his name is Jaya, not Justin, and he's a king, or he's going to be a king. He's going to marry Subarna, which is another princess. And in order to marry her, he has to go to the top of the mountain. He's completely confused. He doesn't know what's going on. He thinks he's been kidnapped maybe by the people who killed his father. He doesn't know where he's at, but he's completely conscious of both worlds. He can see and live in this world. And on top of that, he remembered this world. He remembered the people, the lady he's going to marry is very beautiful. Her name is Subarna. He remembered her. And also his cousin, his name is, who can help me with the name of his cousin? I forgot right now. What is his name? I read it a few times already, I forgot. Remember the name of the cousin?
Lokesha?
Thank you, Lokesha, yes. Lokesha is this cousin, and so they are accompanying him to go to the top of the mountain to get ready for him to marry Subarna. It's a ritual, it's a process he has to go to get a teaching from the best masters in the mountain, so that these masters will completely manifest his full potential. So in order to get his full potential as a king and destroy the Asuras that were already on the planet, supposedly, he doesn't know what the Asuras are. He doesn't believe in anything. He's confused. He just wants to marry this beautiful woman who we learn he cannot even touch until they get married. So he wants to be with her, but he's ready to get to the mountain. Did I mess a lot up? Barista, you read it also a few times. Do you remember anything else I didn't say? Or?
Well, I mean, that's a good basic summary as to where we are at the moment. Perhaps we should step back just very briefly and explain that Justin Davis is a very troubled 15-year-old teenager in West Virginia whose family previously had plenty of wealth and prestige. And Justin himself was considered the prince of the city. What was the name of the city?
Davis, like the city.
The Prince of Davis, that's right. But then his father was murdered. The family lost its fortune. And now Justin is an angry, bewildered, confused young man with lots of martial arts skill and who is determined to avenge his father's death. But like you indicated, his mom gave him that very interesting book for his birthday. And he started reading a little bit of that book to his little brother, Joey, and then went to sleep, and he woke up in the world of that book. So now he's wondering, is this real? Is it a dream? And how do I get back to West Virginia and my family? But then he's starting to remember that he is, in fact, Prince Jaya in this new world. And he's being kind of pulled in two directions. He wants to marry Suvarna. You know, she's really attractive young lady. And but he also wants to get back to his troubled family in West Virginia. So that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you, Barista. Yes, more complete for those who don't know the book and so on and so forth. So I highlighted here from last time a section. Let's see if I can find it again. We are today starting chapter 7. He is in Buloka right now, and I will share the screen. This is part of chapter 6. I highlighted this part because I found it very interesting. And so he was asking questions because he was a little bit confused. So he said here, you read, Barista, how many lives?
Oh, where are you?
Here, how many lives did we have?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is, well, I'm trying not to look at the screen, so I'm trying to find it in the book. Is it the end of chapter 6?
It's in chapter 6. Let me see. Sorry. Let me get.
Oh, I see it. Okay, you want me to read from there?
Yes, please.
How many lives did he have? Was his love for his family in Davis a mere illusion? This thought made him shudder. He rejected the thought because it violated his deepest intuition. When they were alone, he asked Lokesha, "We have many lives, don't we?" "Of course. Everyone in Buloka knows that. We are not ignorant. Yet in each life, we love the family of that life." "But that's natural," Lokesha said, "since in each life we owe a special debt to that family. They are the ones who care for us in that life. After all, we are all souls, and so the universe is but a single family. Therefore, it is easy and natural to love other souls that love and care for us, even if they see us as bodies and do not see our true soul." This reply comforted Justin, or Jaya. He was more determined than ever not to forget his earthly mother, brother, and late father. He formed a resolution that at the right time and moment, he would risk asking Lokesha if he knew about Earth and how Jaya might go there. But what if he returned to a different time, a different century or millennium? If Earth time and Buloka time were not calibrated, his family might have already passed on Earth. These scenarios frightened him so much that Lokesha asked him if he was feeling well. "Of course," he said, desperately trying to play his role. "I never felt better." But despite these fears, the celestial beauty of Buloka began to take over his mind. He found himself eagerly looking forward to the pleasures of Buloka. He feared his power to resist total identification with this place was waning, and with it, he would lose his memory of Davis, West Virginia. For now, he must be Prince Jaya, as the small group of friends continued their trek. And as he played the part, he became the part. After some time, they reached the path up the mountain. "Lokesha," Suvarna said in her last protest, "it's rather silly that you and I can't go too." "Dear sister," he replied, "to journey alone to the teacher is ancient family tradition." "Yes," Jaya added, "I know, yet another old rule." "Jaya, just do your duty," Lokesha said, "and we can all go home. As we agreed, Suvarna and I will wait for you in this neighboring kingdom. We have friends and allies there." The time had come. Inspecting his weapons and tightening his belt, the former Justin and present Prince Jaya bid an affectionate farewell to both Lokesha, who embraced him, and to Suvarna, who embraced him with her eyes. And with many backward glances at Suvarna, he took to the ancient trail that rose through thickly forested hills to the great mountains. Eager to finish this duty and return to Suvarna, Jaya ran quickly up the mountain, confident that with his powerful body, he would soon reach the hermitage of the celebrated Brahmin couple, Dhiman and Charudi. He spared little time to eat or rest, but the mountain path was longer and steeper than he expected. His meager provisions were soon exhausted, and even his powerful body grew weary as he trekked for many days and miles through lonely wilderness. This was aggravating indeed. Why didn't sages build their hermitages in more convenient locations? He must soon reach his teachers. He would rest and eat in their ashram. He pushed his endurance to the limit. At last, he saw clear signs, a smooth, narrow trail leading to a wide riverside clearing that he drew near the ashram. But when he entered the hallowed hermitage of Dhiman and Charodi, he found it eerily deserted. He assumed they went into the forest to gather firewood or to fill their pitchers at the river or gather nuts and berries. He waited and waited, but they did not return. He touched the fire pit. It was stone cold. No one had been there for days. There were no provisions in their huts. It was cold. The abandoned ashram was lovely, with fruit and flower trees framed on three sides by a lovely bend in a clear mountain stream. Yet abandoned it was, deserted for some reason. Now what? On the very ground where he was to hear sacred lessons, he sat alone, hearing nothing but the haunting wind, the shrieks and cries of birds and beasts. He shivered in the high, cold air and brooded over his options. He could not return without a teacher's blessing. That was impossible. He would rest briefly, then resume his search. People said there were teachers in these mountains. He must find one. He would take the first teacher he saw, whether famous, infamous, or unknown. He just wanted to finish and go home with Suvarna and Lokesha. Then he chided himself for coming under the spell of Bhuloka and forgetting his dear family in Davis. It was to them he must return, despite the celestial charms of this realm. After resting, he gleaned wild nuts and berries, drank cold creek water, and set out on his search. His life as Justin Davis drifted through his mind. He worried about his family. Were they still alive? If only he could speak to them across worlds. But his only hope to return was to somehow learn more about this world. Surely the portal through which he arrived here could also take him back. If only he could find it. In the meantime, he must live or die here as Prince Jaya. He found no one that day and spent a chilly night under a blanket of leaves. He set out again in the morning, walking miles through uncaring wilderness. Again, he found nothing. After many hours, as the sun sank in the west, his hope sank with it. But as long as he was alive, he must try. He climbed the highest crest in the area to survey his surroundings and plan the next day's trek. Then he saw it in the distance, a small fire blazing magically in a sheltered clearing. He thought he saw a figure near the fire. A few lower hills separated him from what must be a sage's abode. Gathering his last strength, he eagerly descended one hill and ascended another, approaching the clearing. A closer view confirmed that two sages in white robes sat by the fire. They could be his teachers. He climbed the hill that bordered the clearing and descended toward the sages through thick woods that blocked his view. In the last few minutes before their meeting, he practiced his appeal to the sages, choosing fine words to show it a respect and sincerity he did not feel or had not yet learned to feel. Emerging from the thick woods, he was startled to see how close he was to the sages. They stood about 30 feet away. A sudden steep drop in the hillside and a similar drop in the sages' clearing formed a small ravine that bordered the ashram. A stony stream flowed through the chasm. That ravine separated Jaya from the sages. In the day's last golden light, he saw that the two sages were not the couple chosen by his father. They were young girls about his age. Why were they alone in this remote place? They were too young to be teachers, but surely they could direct him to a teacher or even inform him about Diman and Sharodi. To reach them, he must descend the steep hillside, cross the stream, and climb back up the slope of their ashram. This annoying topography dashed his hopes for an elegant, princely entrance. Oh well, he would enter the hermitage sweating and climbing in a most absurd way, but he must do it. His entrance, however, was to be far worse than he imagined. As he descended the steep hill, he took a close look at the girl sages. One was perhaps a bit younger and seemed to be tidying the ashram. The slightly older girl sat in a graceful yoga posture, back straight, with half-open eyes staring intently into the fire. Her pure white cloth glistened in the twilight. She softly chanted hymns and ladled fragrant melted butter into dancing flames that pulsed with power. Her free hand rested in her lap. This would be easy. He would befriend her, charm her, as he charmed all girls, and even convince her to certify him immediately. Back home, no one would know her age. He wouldn't even have to take the course. Buoyed by this brilliant plan, he made his way down the tricky slope, but he inadvertently kicked a stone that rolled down the slope and crashed into the stream just below the meditating girl. Instantly, she stood up and opened her wide, large eyes, piercing him with her gaze. Her lips parted silently. Every feature of her face showed angry agitation. She didn't understand. He took a step toward her. Her eyes fell with an almost audible thud upon his rich array of weapons. "Leave, now!" she yelled. "You don't understand," Jaya shouted. Now was the time to charm this young, disturbed lady. Since royalty must honor sages, in good humor, he made a grand bow and flashed his most charming smile. He had just begun to introduce himself when the older girl raised a menacing staff and cried, "I told you, leave at once. Stay at your peril." "What? Seriously? You don't understand." He stepped forward. He could teach her a lesson by knocking her staff away with an arrow. He decided against it. Sages must be respected. Princes never attacked them. And he was too tired to play with this overwrought adolescent. But she just wouldn't stop. "This is your last civil warning," she said, raising her staff as if to attack him. "You must leave now." Prince Jaya raised his open hands and laughed. "Would you please stop all this drama, young lady? I wouldn't hurt you. I'm a humble prince looking for a teacher. I'm delighted to meet such lovely sages in this rather remote location. You are a bit young, like me, but if you would kindly certify me as your student, you could earn a sweet reward. So what do you say?" The girl stared at him, incredulous. He took her silence as permission and stepped toward her. "I warned you." She raised her staff. This time, its tip burst into flames, and a fireball shot across the creek straight at his head. With the lightning reflexes of a trained warrior, he dodged, and the racing flames singed his ear. He cried out in pain. Was this girl an asura? Had he stumbled into a demon camp? "That was not amusing," he shouted, raising a shield. She moved her hand, and the shield flew from his grasp. "Very, very clever," he said with a trace of anger. "Nice tricks. Look, you have no reason to fear me. I will not use my own powers on you, so please calm down." Jaya was a brilliant fighter, but he could not attack a girl or a sage, and she was both. Though he was confident he was not in real danger from her magic, she did have some power, and she did seem crazy, and that was a bad combination. He realized he had startled her, and so he again resorted to his powers of persuasion. "I am most sorry that I startled you. Forgive me, I truly mean no harm." She shook her head. Asuras always say that before they strike. Leave now. Well, at least she was probably not an Asura. In fact, something about her seemed familiar, but he had no time to think about that. Hungry and tired as he was, he chose to retreat at once before she attacked again and forced him to subdue her, which would be extremely awkward. All right, I'm leaving, he shouted, taking a step back. And I am not an Asura. What can I do to convince you of that? You can leave quickly before I slay you. If you are truly innocent, your death here would be most unfortunate. But if you kill an innocent, he said angrily, how are you better than an Asura? Because I offer you a chance to leave, she said. If you're innocent, you will go. I'm going, he replied, and thanks for the saintly reception. He could not turn his back to her. Locking his eyes on her, he stepped slowly backward, up the hill, hands guarding his face. But in his anxious state, walking backward in fading light, he stepped on a slippery, round rock. He fought for balance, twisting his body and swinging his arms. But with a cry, he tumbled backward, head over heels, down the hill, crashed into the creek, and struck his head with an awful crack on a granite rock. For a moment, he saw the stream turn red with his blood. Thinking, I will die, he sank into the rushing water and lost consciousness. He knew not how much time passed before he opened his eyes to find himself lying on the creek bank. It was night, and a lovely moonlit face hovered above his. It was the face of his attacker. Flowing silken tresses framed her flawless features and cascaded over delicate shoulders. Seeing her face so close, he shuddered. How could it be? Why do you stare at me? She asked. I'm sorry. She was the girl on his book cover in Davis, the girl sage who watched the avatar stride through the woods, the girl he meditated on as he fell asleep that night. But this was not the time to tell her about West Virginia. She looked into his eyes and said, You are healed. Jaya reached up and touched his head. There was no wound, no pain. He slowly sat up and asked, Did you do that? She nodded. Seeing him well, she moved to a respectful distance. I sincerely thank you, Jaya said. You saved me. But why did you try to kill me? I didn't, she said calmly. Had I tried, I would have killed you. I just wanted you to leave. But why? Because you may be an Asura who came here to kill us. That is crazy, Jaya argued. Why would you think that? Her face flushed and tightened, and she looked away as if his words aroused a most painful memory. Regaining composure, she turned to him and said, Asuras menace the world. Sometimes they dress as princes and murder unsuspecting sages. You entered a sage's dwelling with weapons, like an Asura. I'm sorry, he said, truly sorry. I didn't know. I come from a distant country. If only she knew how distant. Look, he continued, I don't really know what Asuras are or what they look like. Some say they invaded this world, but I took that as a story, a myth. And if you truly suspect I'm an Asura, why did you save me just now when I fell in the river? You may be innocent. I could not let you drown. So, you didn't know. That means you risked your life to save mine. The thought struck him deeply. Yes, she said, that was my duty. All souls are united in Krishna. So if I unfairly harm you, I harm myself. Jai would have to think about that. He heard footsteps. The younger girl sage approached and shyly peered at him. It's all right, the older girl said. You can come now. As the younger girl slowly approached, the older said, This is my younger sister, Sarit, and I am Devi. I am Prince Jaya, he said, and despite these unusual circumstances, I'm happy to meet both of you. He saluted them with folded hands, and they returned his gesture. Sarit now smiled and came closer, More relaxed than her older sister, her eyes were playful. Prince Jaya took advantage of this thaw in their relationship and explained politely that hunger assailed him. I have not had a meal in several days, and I walked up here from the wide valley below. Of course, Devi nodded to Sarit, who brought forest fare, placing a bamboo tray of wild fruits, vegetables, and nuts before him. Because of Devi's initial attack, Jaya was still a bit wary. What if they poisoned the food? He had no choice. He must eat or die. Happily, he ate and did not die. The simple food, like Devi's healing power, worked its magic. His fatigue was gone. By now, darkness spread everywhere. Only the sacred fire gave light. He now had to raise a delicate question. Would the girls permit him to stay the night? And if so, where? The girls discussed privately and awarded him the far end of their clearing with a thick blanket for the mountain cold. We know you are accustomed to luxury, Devi said, but this is all we have to offer you. He thanked them. He had avoided these austerities for his entire youth, but no longer. He looked at the positive side. He would grow tougher. The sky was clear and white with stars, so no rain would torment his rest. Jaya prayed intensely to wake as Justin in Davis, West Virginia, but he awoke as Prince Jaya in a mountain clearing in Buloka. Devi and Sarit were already awake. They sat facing their holy fire, chanting mantras and offering clarified butter into the dancing flames. He approached them and stopped at a respectful distance. Devi was absorbed in her offering, and so he could discreetly study her face in the light of fire and dawn. There was no doubt. She was the girl on his book cover, even more beautiful in person, angelic, and dangerous.
This is perfect timing because Ilacha just asked me when he can enter. I will invite him to come and read the next chapter, but I need all of you to open your cameras. I wanted to make it very personal that we're here for him and everybody has their cameras on. So please, if you don't mind to turn on your cameras, I will tell him to come. We just finished chapter 7. I don't know. Okay, I'll let him know. ¿Le puedes avisar a Dardura, Milidesha, por favor? Ahí está Dardura.
¿Qué hago?
No, ya está. Hasta que, until Silechada arrives, any other, any comments about this chapter, which is read? Any feedback, any comments? Okay, that's okay, Danesha, no problem.
So I want to point out again how true to life this chapter depicts Justin. He's a 15-year-old boy, and he seems to be enamored of any pretty girl who walks by, including the sages. So it's very, relatable and true to life. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's fun also how he wanted to just get a certification and leave, no? Give me what I need and let me get out of here, no? Quickly.
I like also how Justin Davis, Jaya, he's thinking about his family back home in West Virginia as well too, and that's kind of conflicting. It shows kind of the struggle between an everyday person's attachment to their material life and attachment to Krishna, the spiritual life, and the being in that different world there, and it's still thinking about things that he knows is not important, although it is important, type of thing, for the moment. It shows that struggle.
Yeah, and also the Devi, she almost killed him. No, she didn't. He stepped back and he fell down. And he, like I say, I didn't kill you because if I wanted to kill you, I would have done so. But he went and cured him. What was the argument? Why did he cure him? Even though he may be, she didn't know who he was. What did he say? Very important, that part, I thought. Anybody remember? I always like to take quizzes. What did he said?
Because it's like, wasn't like her duty or something?
She said because if you harm him, it will be like harming her soul, because everyone is related to Krishna or something like that, So if I harm you, I will be harming myself. So something that we need to consider in our life, in our daily lives also, no? But sometimes we may not realize that when we hurt somebody, we hurt another. I see La Charity is coming right now. Hurry, hurry, ball. Cameras on, action. Jai Sri La Charity, humble obeisances. All the glories to your book and your presence. Hari Hari Bol. Jai Sri La Charity.
Hare Krishna. Hey, Varishta, how's your health?
It is improving, Acharya Dev. Thank you.
Oh, good. Y Nuestra Señora de Patagonia, Mitilesha.
Hare Krishna, Jaya.
Hare Krishna. Un momentico.
Yo tengo el libro acá y lo comparto en la pantalla si usted quiere, si la chica. No sé si usted prefiere.
No, yo tengo, no. Yo tengo, no tengo que, entonces, sí. ¿Cuál capítulo?
8, si la chévere.
Ay, es terrible. No aguanto ver mi cara tan grande. In English. Oh, this is an English group.
Yes, si la chévere.
Con ser cierta edad, uno se vuelve súper motivado para no identificarse con el cuerpo. Okay, so chapter 8, I have it here. The author gave me a free copy.
Jay.
Let's see, you all understand English? Let's see.
I'm already read that part already in the Justin Davis in Spanish, so they want to hear you read it, but they may know the story and they know a little bit of English, some of them.
Can they afford it, my price?
None of us can afford it.
Okay, let's see. Entró Adri. Sí, thank you everyone. Obrigado a todos. Thank you everyone. Gracias a todos. So let's see, chapter 8, right?
Yes, I
don't think I've ever read that. Whoa. Okay, here goes nothing, as they say. So, chapter 8 of Justin Davis. Jaya walked quietly to the fire and sat across from Devi and Sarit. He watched their faces through the flames, and they glanced at him when the fire offerings did not require their attention. Still seeing suspicion in their eyes, he waited. He waited till their duties were done and then boldly said, "Please, let me tell you my story, who I really am. We need to clear this up now, if you will be so kind as to hear me." Devi looked up at his sudden request, spoken with a martial passion to which he sensed she was not accustomed. Turn that on. Sarit, looking eager to hear a good story, gently nudged her older sister, who remained stoic and silent. "Please," Jaya said, "it is necessary that I tell you." Feeling Sarit gently tugging her hand, Devi said, "All right, Prince, we will hear you." He must be open and honest with Devi. She first suspected him of evil intent, and he could not forever lose her trust with a clumsy lie or half-truth. So he told his story, minus West Virginia, recounting how his father and future father-in-law insisted he learn at the feet of the teacher. A humble, austere life in the cold mountains under strict tutelage would teach Jaya discipline and austerity, virtues he had not yet learned to love. If he was to claim Suvarna's hand, inherit a throne, and rule a realm, he must submit to this ancient ascetic custom, at least for a short while. At the same time, his most pressing goal was to return to his family in West Virginia. All the beauty and pleasure of Bhuloka, no matter how familiar and real it seemed, could never compensate for the loss of his family in West Virginia. Were he to fail to return to them, all three lives would be devastated. As a powerful king, Jaya might have access to knowledge and power that would carry him back to West Virginia. In the meantime, he must continue to play his role here, a role he could not honestly say he disliked. After all, he first saw Devi on the cover of a book that his dear mother gave to him. This thought gave him hope. It must all be somehow connected, and even Devi might have the power to send him home once he gained her confidence. "I will be honest," Jaya said to Devi and Sarit. "All I want is to return to Suvarna, marry her, and inherit my throne. I'm desperate to find a teacher who will just certify me. I know I will be a just and merciful king, and I have the power to protect my people. I don't see what else I need to learn." "But why did you come here?" Devi asked. "Yes, exactly," Sarit echoed. "Why here?" "Well, both my father and Suvarna's insisted that I not accept any so-called teacher. Rather, I must follow their example and journey to the great mountains to learn from an exalted guide. They emphasize that our local teachers could not unleash all of my powers." I like this book, actually. "I tried to convince them that I had all the power I need, but they insisted that I needed a special teacher. I am not exactly convinced, but I had to obey. They said they knew of a Brahmana couple who are excellent teachers, and they sent me here to study with them. Both are renowned for their knowledge and character. No teachers in my country compare to them, or so everyone said. But when I reached their hermitage a few days ago, they were gone with no trace. I was deep in the mountains and tired from my trek with little food left. I could not turn back. Even if I made it back down, it would be defeat and shame, worse than death for a prince. As you may know, once a prince ascends the mountain, he can only return with the blessings of a teacher. I then searched for another worthy teacher. I literally stumbled into your midst. And as true sages, you must know that I speak the truth with no motive other than what I already described. Devi followed his narration with rapt attention. When he finished, she said quietly, "What are the names of the illustrious sage couple that you could not find?" "Their names are Dhiman and Charudhi, his wife." Devi's face suddenly turned pale, and Sarit seemed to be holding back tears. Jai waited in silent suspense till Devi looked up and said, "Dhiman and Charudhi were our parents. They left this world a year ago." Shocked at this news, Jai expressed his genuine sorrow at the girl's loss. With kind, eloquent words, he repeated his condolences, emphasizing that he had only heard the highest praise of their parents. "I assure you with all my heart," he promised, "I meant no disrespect to your most dear and venerable parents when I expressed my eagerness to finish the course and return to Suvarna. I beg your forgiveness if I gave any offense, implicit or explicit. I deeply regret that I spoke as if I didn't value the instruction I might have received had I enjoyed the great fortune of learning from your parents." Devi assured him that she took no offense since he had spoken without personally knowing her parents, nor even that they were her parents. Jai thanked her. She smiled sadly, and her smile only increased her beauty. He began to see that her grave reserve concealed and probably protected strong, noble affections. It was clear that she had deep feelings for her parents and sister, and she risked her life to save his. But as much as he appreciated Devi, a new possibility opened to him. He had been sent to study with a saintly couple, but that couple had passed away. Jai now had a perfectly good reason to go back down the mountain and find an easy teacher. He need not stay here, but since he was already here, the simplest solution would be to study with Devi if she accepted him. And life in the mountains did have its charm. It was peaceful. No, actually, it was boring and cold, and the food here was impossibly plain. He longed to return to his warm southern home, and even more so to Davis, West Virginia. He must not be seduced by this realm, however familiar, celestial, and gratifying it was. But Devi and Sarit did intrigue him, and Devi was on his book cover in West Virginia. He had thought of her, fallen asleep, and then awoken in a strange, beautiful world. Devi might well hold the key to his return to West Virginia. So for now, he would stay and see what he could learn from Devi about returning to Davis and about battling those demons the girl seemed to see everywhere. If Devi was too difficult, he would head down the mountain and seek help elsewhere. Now was the time to ask her to teach him. He hoped for full cooperation. After all, Devi even smiled once. For now, he would only request that she teach him. Tomorrow, he would request most delicately an abbreviated course of study. If things went well, he would eventually broach the topic of West Virginia. So I'll stop there. I have to admit, I really like it.
Wow, beautiful, Silachara. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for reading for us. I don't know, the devotees have questions or comments.
Any questions?
Yes, I do have a question.
I have a question too. Go ahead. Go ahead.
How did you get all these ideas for all these characters, Acharyadev? It's a very fascinating story. This is the second time that I'm reading the book, and it's so fascinating, all the details. So how did you get ideas to build the characters of this book?
Actually, I mean, on the material side, I mean, the spiritual side, Krishna just revealed everything. On the material side, I accepted a guru, a writing guru, Jane Austen, and I studied. I thought of writing as writing a novel. If someone wants to become a dentist or an engineer, you have to study. So I studied. I studied seriously, read a lot of books. And plus I had a great teacher, Jane Austen, who was like, I mean, a lot of, when I hear this book or when I read it, there's a lot of Jane Austen in the book. So, and then ultimately it was Krishna's mercy. Ultimately, it's just Krishna's mercy, in my humble opinion.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I feel like
Gandhini Prabhuji, yes.
I have a couple of questions, but I don't know if this is a part of the book or different part of the book because I'm reading in Spanish and in English, so I get confused. But one thing I feel like the arguments that Justin gives to, or Jaya gives to Devi is the arguments I feel you have heard 100 times from your disciples, or why not surrender to a certain duty or service like that.
Oh, much more than 100 times.
But they're very, 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 all of us feel very identified with one point or another, or many of the arguments that Justin gave. So it's very, very touching. We become very personal to it. There is one question I had, was a little surprised that literally Justin renounced to everything. He renounced to, to this army, like a prince clothing, and he just wear like it looked
well, it was just temporary. It's just like if, it's just he thought it would be for a very short time just to get a certificate. Hey, there's Mr. Las Vegas. I hope that what gets read in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. So, any other question? Okay, thank you all very much. Appreciate your support, and hope I'll see you again soon.
Jai Silacha, thank you so much for coming. Thank you, 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 thank you.
Hi, Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you to everyone who been here. We can continue reading. I just feel bad we don't have more questions for Silachadev. I was like, oh, he's here. How come we don't have more questions? Like, I should have prepared a bunch of questions more. But anyway, he came and read for us, and so nice. Any other comments anybody wants to make, or we just keep reading? No, today everybody's very quiet. Okay, thank you. I'm going to share the screen now, and I don't know, Rama, you want to read, or Barista want to keep reading? I don't know.
It's Rama's turn.
Okay.
Gandhini, thank you for organizing that.
Silacha's mercy. This is Silacha's mercy.
The best part of 2022. This hasn't been a very good year, just like the year before. So that's the best thing that's happened this year. Thank you so much. I know it wasn't easy organizing Shilachardev to come.
I wish we.
I was so happy, like I couldn't speak. I was just so happy, like I couldn't say anything.
Anyway, he gave us a little bit of flavor of the mood. No, he's laughing while he's reading it, and it's so nice.
Yeah, his smile. I was just so nice. Okay, where are we starting at on the page here?
But if Jaya thought.
But if Jaya thought that Devi's brief, lovely smile signaled a budding friendship between them, a new spirit of easy cooperation, that hope ended as quickly as her smile. He asked her to teach him and Devi, who had now reassumed her impenetrable reserve, replied coolly. Let me read that sentence again. He asked her to teach him, and Devi, who had now reassumed her impenetrable reserve, replied coolly, everything you told me about your purpose and actions matches what we heard from our parents. They once spoke to us of your father and future father-in-law as good people. I have no reason to doubt your identity, but there may be serious reasons to doubt your seriousness as a student. I will think about your request and we can discuss it tomorrow. Without waiting for a reply, she gave him a curt bow of her head and walked into the forest, presumably to have quiet time away from him. This delay disappointed Jaya, but he knew he could not press Devi, especially now when his mention of her parents aroused her grief. He must wait till the next day. Even as she began to trust him, Devi was still Devi. She kept an unvarying emotional distance from him, yet she seemed to look into his soul. She was unlike any girl he had ever met. If her answer tomorrow was unfavorable, he would request her help in returning to Davis. If that failed, he would return at once to his friends. In the meantime, he would take advantage of Devi's temporary absence to speak with Sarit and hopefully learn more about the situation, since the younger girl seemed more open and relaxed than the elder. Still, it was with some shyness that Sarit agreed to speak with him. I am grateful that Devi is considering my request for instruction, he began. But I don't understand why I was so strongly suspected of being an Asura and driven away with, let us say, controlled violence. Why such strong suspicion? I mean no disrespect to you or your sister. I simply want to understand. We do regret that we drove you back last night and precipitated your fall, but it was not out of malice. We had a reason. You see, when our parents departed for the world beyond, they believed that Devi and I were ready to take care of ourselves. And we were prepared at that time. But soon after that, we heard from sages that Asuras had invaded Buloka, placing us all in danger, even the sages. The invasion began secretly some time ago. The first Asura wave took birth in royal families, and now by dharma, by law, they are inheriting kingdoms and armies. Their power grows in a most frightening way. Are you sure of this invasion? Do Asuras look different than normal people? No, they look like us. That's why they are so dangerous. But in my kingdom, Justin said, and in all the kingdoms we crossed, we saw no sign of an Asura invasion. In fact, in the two great kingdoms of Surasena and Kurukshetra, everyone seemed happy and at peace. Sarit paused for a moment, as if to consider his words. Colorful singing birds darted about the ashram. On a facing hill, a family of deer stopped to watch them, and then made their way slowly toward the ever-rushing creek below. Sarit had gathered her thoughts. But you must have heard that evil King Kansa rules Surasena. He is an Asura invader, Sarit insisted. I heard that he is a severe king who suppressed family rivals to seize the throne. But those things are all too common among royalty. I confess I did not think that Kamsa is an invading Asura, Jaya said. Oh, but he is. Devi confirmed it, and she knows these things. Jaya now saw that the girls, for all their purity, were frightened young ladies, alone in the mountain forest. They believed they could live alone, but now they saw Asuras everywhere and embraced an invasion theory, for which Jaya could see no evidence in the hundreds of miles and many kingdoms he recently traversed. Indeed, this talk of an Asura invasion amused him, though he would never offend the girls by revealing his skepticism about it. Sarit had more to say on this subject. I've heard of terrible incidents, she continued anxiously, in which Asura princes approached kindly teachers, praised them, touched their feet, gave them gifts, gained their confidence, and then cruelly murdered them. Oh God, Jaya cried. That would be unspeakable evil. Are you sure that happened? Of course, Devi told me. She heard it from traveling sages, though I don't remember their names. We grew up in the lovely ashram that you found abandoned. We lived with our parents, of course, and we were always very happy in our daily duties and our spiritual practices. But when my parents ascended to the world beyond and Asuras invaded Buloka, Devi feared for my safety. Asuras might come. So she decided we should leave our home and go higher in the mountains where we are now. And she also learned mystic weapons to protect us. Sarit's naive narration increasingly entertained Jaya, and it took some effort to remain serious when Sarit mentioned Devi's weapons. Devi and Sarit could hardly understand the powers and weapons of real warriors. Little fire tricks with a staff impressed them and made them feel safe. Still, Sarit's credulous tale was delightful in its own way and a welcome relief from Devi's unmitigated gravity. Jaya wanted to hear more. So, he said in a concerned tone, what will happen to Buloka, according to Devi? Oh, you need not fear, Sarit assured him. The sages say that the Avatar is coming and he will save Buloka. Krishna himself, the original Avatar, will come very soon, any day now. But at least you can understand why we were so suspicious when you first came. That should be you and not your, right there, Gandhini. When you first came. There we go. We're sorry now, but Asuras often lie. And if you had been an Asura, you would feign innocence to gain our trust. And I'm sure you understand that Devi feels responsible for my safety. She is my only family now, so she had to be cautious. Please don't think badly of her for that. Of course I don't. She acted as a loving sister, and I honor her for that. Much as this topic interested him, Jaya then said, can I ask you about another topic, which perhaps is related to the first? Yes, please. Sarit pushed her long, smooth hair away from her face and tied it with a string. She opened her eyes wide, inviting his question. I mean no offense, he began, but even now, when we seem to trust each other a little more, Devi seems, well, so distant and aloof with me. I feel I can never speak to her as a friend, though we are near the same age. I beg you not to take this as a criticism of your sister. I understand your feelings, Sarit said. I might feel as you do were I in your place, but please consider that Devi grew up in a tiny hermitage in the mountains, and in her whole life, she has never met a boy or young man near her age. You are the first. She has dedicated herself since childhood to advanced and perhaps from your viewpoint, severe yoga practices. Yes, I understand, Jaya continued. Where did it go? Did we switch pages? There we go. Yes, I understand, Jaya continued. It is an honor to be the first boy to speak with such an extraordinary girl. I think it's an honor for anyone to speak with Devi. I feel so fortunate to be her sister. Sarit flashed her spontaneous, innocent smile that Justin found charming. Were she not a sage, he would see her as a dear younger sister. I'm sure you are fortunate, Jaya said, finding this talk with a Brahmini girl to be unlike any previous conversation. It's easy to grasp that my presence here would be quite awkward for Devi, as it would be for me had I never met a girl. But to be fair, you and I are able to easily converse. But didn't you also grow up in the same high mountains? For some time, I did. But I wanted to see the world. So when I was 10, my parents let me stay with my aunt and uncle in the foothills, where there are villages. I spent a year there and met many people. And Devi never desired to see the world? Jaya asked. No, she didn't. I asked her to come, but she was always engaged and happy in the spiritual dimension that lies within each of us. Devi is a very advanced soul. She thinks more of the world beyond than of this world. The world beyond? Isn't that where your parents went? Yes, that is the real home of all souls. But we must be pure to go there. Devi is so eager to return to the real home of every soul that she vowed she would never descend to the world below. She is preparing to rejoin our parents. And you will follow your sister? Of course. It will take me a little longer, but Devi is so kind. She said she would wait in this world until I am ready. That's why I try hard in my spiritual practice. I don't want to keep Devi waiting. Jaya smiled and nodded his appreciation of Sarit's devotion to her older sister. Sarit, I deeply respect Devi's purity, her spiritual achievement, and yours. But was she never curious at all about this world? Sarit smiled. As children, we learn that the world below is a place of illusion and selfish pursuit, and that even religion down here is often mere ritual and dogma with little deep concern for the pure soul. There is some truth in that. But tell me honestly, do you and Devi see me as merely part of the corrupt material world? At this question, Sarit laughed so innocently that Jaya found himself laughing with her. With a smile, he waited for her answer. Oh, we know there are good people below, she said. In fact, some wise saints live here to help and teach those who suffer. Perhaps you are one of the wise. You are very kind, Sarit, but I cannot call myself wise. Not yet. She raised her eyebrows as if to say, well, you know yourself best. Sarit's kind, open nature emboldened Jaya to ask a final question. Sarit, are you really happy with this life? Living alone with your sister up in the mountains? Is this really all you want from life? Yes, we are happy, she replied. Jaya had his doubts. He wanted to pursue this topic, but he heard Devi returning up the path, so he thanked Sarit for her time and went into the woods to practice with his knives and arrows. As night fell, the air again turned cold, and he returned to sit by the fire, watching Devi through the flames. She gazed at him as if scanning his soul. He pondered his fate till he grew weary and retired for the night. It was cold, too cold in the high mountains. Jaya came from the warm south, and the food here was always the same, so plain, so austere. Nothing but boiled vegetables, wild fruit, a few seeds and nuts. Jaya dreamed of fried cakes and vegetables, sweets, butter and yogurt, and he stopped himself. He must stay focused. If only he could be sure of returning to West Virginia, he would happily endure the austerity of this ashram, and he would not lament if Devi rejected him and sent him back down the mountain where Suvarna waited. If only he could be sure that his family was safe, he would not at all lament spending time with Suvarna. And yet, it would be something to learn from Devi. Thinking confused him, so he went down to the stream to practice his weapons. The next morning, he met Devi at dawn, gave a polite bow, and said, "So, what is your decision?" She began at once to speak of asuras, invasion, and the avatara. This topic was good fun with Sarit, but far less amusing with Devi. She was too serious about it. Jaya sighed impatiently. These girls were so easily spooked, so given to exaggeration. They'd seen so little of the world, despite Sarit's adventures in foothill villages. Jaya had seen many kingdoms, armies, heroic warriors. He was in a far better position to judge whether Asura fiends had invaded this planet. Devi's voice startled him. She was speaking to him. "So, Prince Jaya," she concluded, "if you wish to serve the Avatara and help him defeat the Asuras, I will teach you. Otherwise, find a teacher who covets your gifts and agrees to a quick skim through ritual and dogma."
1 second, Rama, because I thought Jiva Pavana likes to read also. I don't know if he wants to, or we just keep going, just in case.
Yes,
Jiva
if he wants to
Pavana?
read, that would be fine. Yes.
I don't know.
Yes, I can read.
Yay, Haribol. I
Thank
love
you,
your reading.
Rama. Very nice. Yeah, so we have a different readers, you know. So thank you, Rama. Thank you. Very nice.
Okay, I wasn't following along on the reading. Okay,
Here.
cool. Thank you.
Thank you. We started. Thank you.
Okay. She knew just what she thought of religious teachers, ritual, and dogma. "Thank you," he said, well aware he had other options. "Thank you for that kind offer. Exactly what is involved in your course? How would you prepare me to help Krishna fight Asuras?" "It's quite simple. You must become a Rajarshi, a royal sage, or a Jarsi." "I've heard the term, but what does it mean?" "What? Haven't you ever studied? It's part of our eternal culture. It's found throughout our sacred texts," she said. "Of course, I meant, what does it mean to you?" "Devi, I came here to study, right? Just tell me. Please refresh my memory." She shook her head with incredulity. "A Rajarshi is a royal sage, a king, with all the power, titles, and opulence of a monarch. But with all this wisdom of a royal sage sees himself as a soul, and thus as a selfless servant of all other souls, only in that pure sorry, I'm doing it on the phone here.
Yeah, very hard. Do you want to somebody else?
I don't know how to turn the page.
I did change the page.
Oh, you did. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, cool. In that state, you can receive the Avatar's power and defeat the Asuras. I would like to be a Rajarshi, but I don't exactly feel like everyone's servant. For my whole life, so many people have served me. I can imagine, but those relationships are based on the body, which merely covers the soul. In this life, you were born in a prince's body, and another soul lives in a servant's body. In the future, you will inverse roles. None of these bodies, high or low, rich or poor, learned or simple, are the eternal soul. Is that really so hard to grasp? It's pretty basic. I see that. I do grasp it, but I really enjoy my prince life. I want to be honest with you. I know we're all souls, but I don't think at this stage of my spiritual evolution that I can give up the pride or pleasure of a prince. I just like it too much, honestly. Even as Prince Jaya spoke these words, another voice, the voice of Justin Davis, spoke within his heart that he, Justin, had known humiliation, poverty, and disgrace. It was Justin who now wanted to cry to his incarnation as Prince Jaya, "You are mistaken in your pride. There are good people who are poor and forgotten. My mother is the best of ladies, yet she suffers in that condition. And Joey, do not be proud of that in one life. You are a prince." Joey. He preached these words to himself, for he was also Prince Jaya. Yet he felt powerless to restrain the pride of his Buloka incarnation. He must merely witness what he as Prince Jaya would do. But now he must pay attention to Devi, who spoke to him. "What will I do with you?" Devi said. "Why do I even try?" "Okay, how about this?" said proud Prince Jaya. "I'm not a pure soul, but I will tell you, if you will try to help me, teach me, give me some little practice I can do, and I'll make an effort. I know I can go down the mountain and quickly purchase a teacher's blessing, but your message about the soul, well, it's interesting. Self-realization may not be all that bad. After all, hey, let's give it a try." "That is quite generous of you," she said with a blunt sarcasm, "but I'm not your self-realization valet. I told you my conditions. All right, I agree to all that you said about serving all of it." Jaya was eager to see what Devi would teach him, and he had planned to satisfy her demand without giving away too much. "You still strike me as an extremely whimsical," she said, "but I will give you a chance. You will aspire to realize your connection with Krishna, of whom you are a part." "I am part of Krishna? Then I can serve him by serving myself." "True," Devi said, "but to serve yourself, you must know your real self, not just your external bodily identity." Checkmate. "Good point," Jaya acknowledged. "Do you promise to use all of the powers I may give you, all of them strictly in service to the Avatar, to help him serve Buloka from the Ashura invasion?" Yes," he said. "I vow that if evil Asuras have invaded Buloka, and if the Avatar's leadership alone can save this world, and if he comes to this purpose, I will use all my powers that I receive from you strictly in his service." That was a fine legal answer. Devi crossed her arms over her chest. "Do you really mean it?" "Of course I mean it." He crossed his own arm. He crossed his own arms. Do you think I knowingly stand by and let evil flourish? Or would I would sit and watch innocents suffer at the hands of cruel oppressors? I know you get to know me better. I hope you will get to know me better. If all you say is true, I will devote myself to serving the Avatar. Devi listened carefully. "Thank you. You just swore a sacred oath." "Sacred oath? Really?" "Yes. The Avatar will never forget your vow. Ever." This was too serious. He feared this might happen. Sacred vows that last forever? That was precisely why he cleverly inserted 3 escape clauses in his vows. He would serve the Avatar if the Asuras had invaded Buloka, and if Krishna alone could save the day, and if Krishna actually came to this world. All of which he seriously doubted. Further, he felt somehow that he would soon return to Earth and that would surely nullify his view, though he would seriously regret leaving Shuvarna, Lokesha, and his kingdom. In any case, Jaya felt he had outwitted Devi. There might even be more ways to undo a vow, but it seemed unwise at this point to consult Devi in the subject of vow nullification. Instead, he asked, "How does Krishna know what I vowed? He is within you." "What do you mean?" Justin potted his arms in his chest. "Not physically," she said, almost laughing. How lovely she was when she smiled. "The avatar is spiritually present within your heart. You must reach pure consciousness to see him." "Well," he said, "pure consciousness sounds, well, sublime, and I can always use spiritual power." "Yes," she said, "I can imagine you like power. But I would like to speak personally to the avatar to discuss my vow with him." "Someday you can speak with him, but you must earn that privilege by devotion and service." "Thank you," Jaya said. "If the avatar would simply speak with me, I'm sure we would agree on how to proceed." "Undoubtedly," Devi said with a palpable sarcasm. "But I must bring up another point. I am a young lady, perhaps a little younger than you, but as your teacher, I must order you and you must follow. Are you sure that's not a problem?" "Not at all. I'm delighted to accept a young lady. Lovely teacher. I'm glad you don't have a gray beard." "You are hopeless," Devi sighed. "Sorry," he said. "I meant no offense. I'm faithful to my fiance. It's just that I'm, well, vain, flirtatious, frivolous, something like that. But I can improve. We will see about that. Of course. So I don't want to rush you, but can we start now? I mean, right now." Just unfolded his hands in supplication. "If you like, but I must warn you, you will soon be tested, and you must pass the test. If you fail, your lessons will end." Enjoying what he saw as kind of a game with Devi, he implored her to tell him what the test would be, so that he might prepare. "I can only tell you," she said, "that your faith in your teacher will be tested, and that the test will come soon. I promise not to waste your time or my own." "Exactly," he said, "and in that spirit, let us begin." He almost said "fair maiden," but realized that one cannot talk that way to an austere stage, even if she is a beautiful young maiden. "Wait here," she said. She went to her cottage and returned with folded white cloth. "Take this, Jaya," she said. "You cannot be a spiritual student in your silk and jewels. You will use a student's simple cloth." "Seriously?" "Just like your father and his father. This is a tradition. To learn, you must humble the mind so that it opens to wisdom. Even you can see that." She threw him the cloth and he caught it. He went into the woods to change, grumbling all the way.
All right, we finished 2 chapters today. Mamma mia. Wow, wow, wow. Jaya is just as rascal as me. I will say each of us, but then I'd say, no, just talk to me. Oh my God, how many arguments he puts. Oh my God. Yeah, spirit soul, yeah, but this world, imagine if we had to be kings or, princes and, with amazing wife to be married or husband to be married, imagine if we had to renounce to that. We barely can renounce this sticky, horrible body and such a, I don't know, I just feel I have a lot to say always, but anyway, I will please share your thoughts. Barista, you wanted to say something? I saw you, Mike.
No, I'll let the others share in the few minutes we have left.
Okay.
Well, I just love how grounded and in philosophy and how real and relatable everything is as far as the realizations in this this fantasy world of Buloka, and kind of the what would be considered from a writer's standpoint to be science fiction, although you see the character and the struggle and his own cheating propensity and his attachment and his development, and obviously it's just starting out. So that's really nice to see in that type of background and story.
Rama or Rolo or Srimada, anybody? Araceli, anybody want to comment? We have 3 minutes, so. All right, go ahead.
Only I want to say thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I listen to this story so many times, and it fascinates me every time. The arguments and counter arguments, because we live each of those arguments ourselves. That's why I feel like it's so connected to the arguments, like I say you heard hundreds of times, you say thousands of times, no 100 times. But this is the arguments we also put, it's all good, bad, it's all great, bad, tell me what I need to do, blah, blah, blah. And this is interesting about the vow. We made a vow, and it's eternally for Krishna, because Krishna is in our heart, so he won't forget our vow. So we can, that's also very interesting. But he said that he did the vow with clause. I will do the if, and he say if the threes were true, and actually they are true because we know the story, except that he didn't know that. So it's also, we surrender if I have a good house and I have a good food. I surrender if, I have a partner. If I surrender, if, the if Krishna's kind, let us watch, get us see. I saw a movie I highly recommend it in one sense. In one other sense, maybe a little bit offensive for, some, that's interesting because they make Krishna very personal. It's called Oh My God. It's very funny movie from India, who somebody sues, it has a court case against God, and Krishna appears in the movie as a person, and it's really nice. For them, there's a lot of things, obviously, they're not nice in the movie, but that part of seeing Krishna as a person, a very handsome man in the movie, was like, oh, so nice. So nice to understand, all the beauty we see around is just the manifestation of Krishna himself,
You're so advanced, Gandhini. It's so wonderful that you watched a devotional film. I just watched the new Batman movie.
It's the association. I had devotees around me who asked me to. I don't watch many movies, but anyway. So thank you, everybody. I don't know if you want to say last comments. We are around time. Today is
Gandhini, sorry, what was the name of that movie?
Oh My God.
Okay, I'm gonna look for it.
Yeah, you have to watch it. It changed completely my vision, because we see Krishna in the pictures, depicted blue with a flute and these clothes, and I'm talking about myself, very foreign for us, very like, there is another world and it looks like completely different than we look right now, or we cannot even imagine. So our brains kind of shut off of this personal God. But in this movie, they make him a handsome guy, the most famous artist in India, to be Krishna, So you start seeing Krishna with an eye like, he's a handsome man. It's like, oh, he's a handsome. And then there is some woman and they're offering food right away. And I think, of course, if the Krishna will be there, all the women will be offering food like the gopis used to do, but more relatable to a real life. I saw it with 3 or 4 devotees, Matashis, Vaishnavis.
I'm gonna watch it. If it was good enough for you, then it's good enough for me.
And some of them said it was offensive because, of course, they say you should not give donations to the temples and this and that. There's some things, obviously, they're not. But what I like was the personal aspect of Krishna in the movie. So
I just looked it up. It's on Netflix.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yay. All right, today will be a movie day. Get everything else done.
All right. Thank you. We are
Gandhini.
advancing. He's going to be tested. So remember, the Jai is going to be tested. Are we tested all the time? You know, what is going to be tested? This is important. This is very important part of the story. And then we close with this. What he's going to be tested on. David told him, you will test it on. Most important part.
It was his faith in the teacher.
Say it again.
It was the faith in the teacher's ability.
Yes. So he will be tested on his faith to his teacher. This is very important for us and for them and for the rest of the story. He's going to test his faith to the teacher. He surrendered. He said, I surrender. I do whatever you say. If, but I will do it. You know, I will be a good boy. I will do whatever you tell me. And this is, you're going to be tested on the faith on your teacher. This is very important what comes next. Don't miss the next chapter. Haribolito. Thank you todos.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Beautiful.